This is Arya, and you're listening to Rabid Courage, where we stop pretending and go straight into the heart of the matter. Lately, I keep seeing this line floating around. Just choose courage over comfort. As if it's that simple. Like you're in a cafe staring at two muffins. Courage or comfort? Blueberry muffin? Yeah, I think I'll be brave today. Right. Meanwhile, in real life, when an actual moment hits, your chest tightens, your stomach flips, your brain starts throwing around worst-case scenarios like confetti, and your nervous system is not asking for a motivational quote. It's asking for an exit. We talk about courage like it's a mood, a vibe, an aesthetic, a Hollywood scene of heroic bravery. But when the moment arrives, it feels a lot more like, I think I might throw up, cry, and dissociate all at the same time. So in this episode, I don't want to talk about courage as a slogan or a motivational speech. I want to talk about what courage actually is when your body is freaking out and your life is not cooperating with your timeline. Because if courage doesn't feel heroic when you actually need it, what does it feel like? And how do you work with that instead of faking it? So let's start where courage usually begins. Not in inspiration, but in incoherence. Courage usually shows up uninvited. It doesn't appear out of nowhere. It doesn't politely tap you on the shoulder and ask, "Are you ready to be brave now?" It usually arrives when something in your life and something in your inner truth stop matching. You've been living with a script. I'm fine. This is just how relationships are. Work's supposed to feel like this. Everyone's tired. It's normal. But then one day, your body quietly files a complaint. You walk into the same house, the same job, the same conversation, and something in you goes, no, I can't keep doing this like this. Nothing outside you looks different, but internally, the coherence is gone. The story you've been repeating and the way your gut feels do not line up anymore. There is almost a quiet dread. One morning I was standing in my kitchen at 6:42 a.m., coffee mug halfway to my mouth, same counter, same light, same day, and suddenly my chest drops. Not panic, not drama, just a flat, heavy knowing, if I do this 5 more years, I'm not surviving. Something in me dies. Jung might call this the moment the unconscious stops politely whispering and starts banging on the door. Joseph Campbell might say, this is where the hero realizes the village life that they've been clinging to is no longer viable. It's not that you've suddenly become dramatic. It's that the version of you who could tolerate certain things has quietly expired. When your inner reality stops matching the life you're living, do you change the story to fit the life? Or do you start changing the life to fit the truth? So let's be clear. Your body has an opinion. And here is where courage stops being abstract and becomes biological. It's tempting to treat courage like a purely mental decision. Think brave thoughts. Do brave things. We see this all the time, don't we? But your body has veto power. You decide, okay, I'm going to say what I really feel. Or I'm going to set that boundary. Or I'm going to stop pretending I'm okay. And immediately your physiology files a complaint. Your throat tightens, your heart rate jumps, your palms get clammy and your jaw locks, your shoulders crawl towards your ear, and your body is now thinking about, quote unquote, living your truth. It's sorting reality into very simple categories. Safe or not safe, belonging or rejection, security or threat. We are always locked in our sympathetic and parasympathetic dance from a biological standpoint, and courage from a biological standpoint is seriously sus. Think about it. Doing something brave usually means we're about to risk what used to keep us safe. I was just watching something the other day, and the man is sitting in his parked car with a phone in his hand, rehearsing one sentence over and over. I can't take this on. And saying it a bunch of different ways. His chest was pounding. He looked like he was about to jump off a roof, but all he was doing was rehearsing, not volunteering, and saying no to doing a favor. And this really struck me because it shows how your nervous system resists. It's not trying to sabotage your growth. It's trying to keep you alive based on outdated data. So if your biology reads courage as danger, how do you work with your body instead of demanding it be chill and enlightened while you do something that scares it? Now let's talk about timing, because courage almost never shows up when life is neat. It rarely arrives clean. We like to imagine courage as one clean, decisive moment. You do it once and there you go. But in reality, it gets tested inside overlapping chaos. You're not dealing with one thing. You're juggling 5. You're behind on sleep. Your inbox looks like a horror movie. Your relationships are not simple. Money is tight. Something in your health needs attention. And right there, in the middle of all of that, comes a moment that demands a decision from you. Say yes or no. Stay or go. Speak up or swallow it. Tell the truth or keep the peace. Courage isn't the usual luxury move you get to make after a week-long retreat. And hey, if you can go to the retreat, that's great. But really, it's the everyday. It's the choice you make after a crappy day with limited bandwidth in a body that is already tired. Stoic thinkers knew this. Life rarely waits for you to be in the right headspace. It corners you and then asks, who are you going to be now? If courage is mostly demanded on your worst days and not your best ones, how might that change what you expect of yourself? Expectations have everything to do with this. This is where courage culture quietly turns cruel because we are sold a lie about fear. I call it the pop psych myth of fearlessness. There's a kind of gaslighting hidden in some courage content that sounds a bit like, be fearless, feel the fear and do it anyway. Bravery is a choice. Technically, sure. In practice, this becomes another stick you beat yourself with. Because when you're actually in the moment, when your body is buzzing with chemicals and your thoughts won't line up, you might think, if I were truly brave, I wouldn't feel like this. And none of this feels like bravery. But here's the thing. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's your relationship to it. You're not failing at courage because your heart is racing and you feel like you want to back out. If anything, the louder your fear is and the more you still lean in, the more honest your courage is. Courage isn't, I'm not scared. It's, I'm terrified and I'm still willing to stay in this conversation with myself and with reality. If you stop treating fear as evidence you're not courageous and started treating it as the arena where courage is born and happens, what might shift for you? And I think this is really important because there is a courage that nobody applauds. This version of courage that never trends. It doesn't look like a leap at all. It's the art of staying. It's just staying. I'm not talking about staying in harmful situations. Those are not okay. I'm talking about the courage to stay with yourself when you're ashamed of something you said, or maybe you're disappointed in your own behavior, or you're grieving someone who isn't coming back. Or maybe you're starting over at an age where you swore you'd be all sorted out by now. It's the courage to stay in the same room as your own thoughts, without doing the thing you usually do, which you know what that is, to abandon ship. Could be overworking, overhelping, overpleasing, overnumbing. This is a common scene where you might be sitting on the edge of your bed, phone face down, no distraction cued, and grief suddenly rises like heat in your chest. You're remembering that moment you didn't want to have to do whatever happened. Maybe they left you, maybe someone died, maybe you had to walk away. And for once, you don't escape it. You stay 5 seconds longer than usual. We talk a lot about taking action, and yes, action matters. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not bolt. To remain present for 5 seconds longer than you usually do when discomfort peaks, that is the kind of courage that quietly changes you. Where are you quickest to check out of yourself? And what might 5 more seconds of presence do to that pattern? Now let's talk about the rabid part. I call it the part when fear finally loses the negotiation. Rabid courage is what happens when your intolerance for unnecessary suffering finally overtakes your fear of change. It's not rage for show, or it's not for theatrics. It's a deep, almost primal shift where you stop being willing to collaborate with your own misery. You see the patterns. The way you always bend, the way you keep saying yes while resenting everyone, the way you downplay your needs and explode later, and instead of, that's just how I am, or that's just how life is, what you've always told yourself before, something in you starts pacing. It becomes more than uncomfortable. It wants a different arrangement with reality. Not magical thinking, just more truth. I call it the quiet revolt. It's like the other day I deleted a drafted apology I didn't know. My hands were shaking, my breath steadied. Nothing dramatic happened except for I didn't betray myself that time. It's simple little moments. And if your intolerance for your own suffering spoke plainly for once, what would it say you cannot keep doing? Then there's one more courage myth that I want to name, and I call it when validation becomes sedation. This is the social media sedation of just being brave for existing. There's a strain of content right now that tells you, you're brave just for being you. You're courageous just for feeling your feelings. Every step is courage. Rah, rah, rah. And some of that is necessary balance, let's be fair. Many people have been shamed for so long that even admitting I'm not okay is a radical act. And that's perfectly valid. But there is a point where this turns from medicine into sedation. If everything you do is branded as brave, then nothing is. If simply surviving a situation and never changing anything about it is called courage, then we don't have a word anymore for the gritty, painful, deliberate choices that actually rewire a life. You were not helped by being told you're courageous for things you did by default. You were helped by being told where your real power lives, in the gap between automatic reaction and deliberate response. Courage lives in that gap. And that is also where your wound is. Courage does not live in the algorithm's need to keep you scrolling. When you consume content about bravery, is it calling you forward, or is it just patting you on the head for staying exactly as you are? So this is where I found how to train courage without cruelty. Because how does courage actually get trained? And I'm talking about practical strategies, courage without self-abuse or self-gaslighting. Let's get practical. Not dramatic, practical. How do you train courage without shaming yourself or waiting for a crisis? So here's a simple framework. One thing I do is identify your micro cowardices, not as an insult, as data. Where do you consistently shrink, lie by omission, or pretend you don't know what you actually know? Maybe it's you saying it's fine when it actually isn't. Or maybe it's avoiding an honest talk about money, logistics, sex, work, boundaries, anything. Where are your micro cowardices? Another thing I do is define what is 1% braver for me. What's a response that is 1% braver than what I'm used to hiding behind? Not 100%, not burn it all down, 1 degree more honest. I can't do that this week, or that comment landed hard, or I'm more tired than I've been admitting, or I don't have to be a superhero, I can just be human. 1 sentence. Another thing I do is rehearse it before I need it. Say it out loud. Yes, you'll feel ridiculous. That's okay, no one's watching. But when the moment comes, your nervous system will recognize the words. They won't be brand new. They'll be familiar enough to reach for it. This isn't about becoming fearless. It's about making courage, the thing that makes you feel scared in your body, less of a stranger. If you chose just 1 recurring situation and respond to that with 1% more honesty, what is it you think might change the most for you? Courage also messes with hope. So let's talk about what it does to your expectations, and let's temper them without losing heart. We're fed a narrative that says, if you're brave, doors will open, people will respect you, life will expand because you're being your best version of yourself. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes being courageous is great. Sometimes it makes things plain worse. You set a boundary and somebody leaves. You tell the truth and lose an opportunity. You choose integrity and watch your comfort shrink. Courage does not guarantee pleasant outcomes, but it does guarantee honest ones. So your expectations need tempering. Not, if I'm brave, everything will be amazing, but if I'm brave, it's very likely all hell will break loose, but at least I will know I'm living in alignment with what is true, and my body can just be aligned and coherent. Hope becomes quieter here, stronger. Not hope that things go your way, but hope that you can live with yourself when you look back. If success was measured not by an immediate reward, but by future self-respect, what would you do differently? So I've been talking a lot about what you do when you take the step, but let's talk about after you shrink, because you will, and how you rebuild self-respect after you shrink, because courage isn't just about the big moments. It's about what you do after you don't choose it, because you won't always be brave. No one is. There will be days you will stay silent, days you agree to something you don't want, days you back down, not out of wisdom, but fear. The question is, what do you do next? You can spiral into self-contempt, judge yourself, rationalize, or take the middle path, like, okay, I blinked. I didn't show up how I wanted to. Now what? Self-respect is rebuilt by what you do next. That's how your body relearns it. You might just commit, next time this shows up, I pause 5 seconds. You don't have to win every round. You just have to keep coming back to the part of you that wants to face things honestly. Where have you recently shrunk? And what's 1 small repair you could make? And this is where kindness is fundamental, but kindness without abdication. And this is the line that many people miss. Being kind without letting yourself off the hook is a form of compassion and accountability, and no, they are not opposites. You can say, it makes sense I froze, and also say, I don't want to keep freezing here. You can acknowledge your history without turning it into a lifetime exemption. The most loving relationships aren't the ones where no one is challenged. They're the ones where the challenge comes with respect. You can have that relationship with yourself. If you spoke to yourself like someone you deeply respected but refused to baby, what would you say and what would you start asking? This is where sovereignty actually lives. I call it power in real time. Sovereignty doesn't look like serenity because sovereignty lives in the middle of the mess. It actually looks like refusing to outsource your response. For example, your kid is struggling. You feel the panic. You can't control their life. You can control how present you are right now. Or maybe your partner's distant and you can't control their feelings. But you can control whether you show up curious or attacking. Maybe your work is draining you and you can't snap your fingers into a new career, but you can stop lying to yourself about what you're living and start planning something. Sovereignty is not nothing touches me. It's things touch me, but they don't drive me without my consent. If power wasn't measured by calm, but by engagement, how powerful would you already be in your life today? So every week we're going to do a closing challenge. Today's is 1 courage rep. Here's the challenge. Pick your one area where you feel you're living smaller than what feels true to you. Just one. Name the pattern. You can even write it down in 1 sentence. This is where my courage is being requested. It could be anything. Then choose 1 tiny rep, not to impress anyone, not to become a brand, just to show your nervous system and familiarize it with how you're willing to stand on your own side 1 beat longer. That is where Rabid courage begins, not in the big gesture, but in the quiet refusal to abandon what you know is true in your body. Thank you for walking into this with me today. No gold-plated courage myths, just you, your body, your patterns, and the possibility of relating to all of it with more honesty and teeth. I'm Arya, and this is Rabid Courage. If this landed, share it with someone whose courage is quieter than they realize. Next time, we're talking about failure, not as a lesson, but as exposure. And until then, stay honest, stay awake, stay feral.